Is there a more elegant GT car than the Aston Martin DB11? This car marked a new era for Aston Martin when it was launched in 2017. It marked a move from the Ian Cullen designed DB9 to this, a Marek Reitman car, and the start of Aston Martin's second century. Now, when it was launched in New Zealand, I was one of the lucky journos who got to drive the DB11, but the car I drove was the V12, and when the V8 version arrived, it's fair to say it lived in the V12's shadow. It's time to readdress that. Because under this clamshell bonnet nestles a true pearl of an engine, an AMG-sourced 4-litre twin-turbo V8. In fact, this was the first Aston Martin to feature this engine. You'll now find it in the V8 Vantage and the new DBX. But what an engine. 503 brake horsepower, 685 newtons of torque. More on that in a moment. The key number to note here is 115 kilos, because that is how much lighter this engine is than the V12. Anyway, that's enough maths. Time for some physics. Okay, open road. You know, even before you start to push this V8 to hear it bark, to hear it roar, you straight away notice that weight reduction over the front end. There is true agility here. And there's a reason for that. I promise you no more math, but basically the lighter engine meant the weight distribution changed from slightly front bias to slightly rear. Now that meant that the engineers could fettle the suspension, so they've softened up the front end and stiffened up the rear. In simple terms, it's like going from wearing work boots to running shoes. Just going to wind the windows down. I really want to hear this V8. We know the V12 sounds incredible, but listen to this. Now, I mentioned earlier the Newton meters, the torque, the grunt of the V8, and that's a key point, because when this car was introduced, it only produced about 2% less torque than the V12. As a result, the 0 to 100 time of 4 seconds was only 1/10 of a second slower than the V12. Probably explained why in most parts of the world, the V8 was the DB11 most people bought. And I actually reckon this car was the reason why we have the AMR version of the V12 now, which sort of writes the pecking order. So good was the V8. A little upstart. Although heck, it's a good sounding upstart. So as a result of the AMR, the V12 was once again quicker on the drag strip, but on roads like this, trust me, 503 horsepower is more than enough. The smile probably tells you that too. Of course, the V8 is more efficient. It also costs $40,000 less than the V12. But the reality is that with a hand-built car like this, what it costs is often, up to the owner. Some of the Q options are incredible. And I'll admit I've wasted quite some time creating my dream Aston Martin interior, so if, this interior isn't your, milkshake, the Q division can do, pretty much anything, and I mean anything. They'll even match a favourite handbag, jacket, or pair of shoes. When it all boils down, there is actually so much that the V8 shares with the V12. There's the same clever aeroblade aerodynamics to keep it planted, the same wonderful 8-speed transmission. There's a coupe and a volante. And of course, they all share that hand-built Aston Martin magic. So is less more? Well, yes and no. Look, you can't deny when it comes to V12, there's a real mystique. After all, it's the engine of supercars, the Spitfire for goodness sake, and when it comes down to sheer numbers, more cylinders, more cubic capacity, a higher top speed than this V8. But listen to this. That sort of mellow rumble that you know can bark and sound like thunder when you push it. And then there's the agility that's offered by the lighter engine. Genuinely, I believe this is more fun to drive. I'd go further. If I had to choose the DB11 to drive on New Zealand roads every time, I would pick the V8.